Alright, here we are again. Time for Texas. This is Jim fly fishing for the rest of us. After work, tying some flies. I'm behind my schedule for tying, but we will endeavor to persevere. So what we're going to tie now is a bendback fly. This is a size 4/0 Anthrax hook. It's got a tiny little barb on it. Now you can just get a regular hook and bend it a little bit. These came this way. I have some 2s of a different manufacturer that are much smaller than this. But I'm going to tie one big bendback and take it with me. I have some smaller bendbacks already tied. But I'm going to try a big bendback if the situation arises. And I'm going to make it ginger and dark brown. I might do tan, ginger, and dark brown, a 3-color bendback, because this is so big. I think I will do that. I'm going to use dark brown thread, Danville's flat wax nylon, 210 denier, and because this is commercially made hook for bendbacks, you don't have to worry about bending it and all that other stuff and making sure. But the important thing, if you bend your own, you see how that hook point is in line? You don't want to put a little bend here and have your hook point going up at an angle, because you'll miss fish, because I tried that and I missed a bunch of fish. You got to have that hook point in line. So when you bend your hook a little bit, if the hook point's not in line this way, you got to come down here and bend it again at the gap. So that's got a big gap at the eye of the hook. I'm going to have to close that up. That's not going to work. Your leader will slip, or your tippet leader will slip right out of that. I'm just glad I noticed that. So this hook right here where they form the eye of the hook, it's got a pretty, I can see that gap. That's a big gap. I'm going to have to make sure I close that up with thread, or that's going to be problematic. Alright, starting to work on that. I'm going to come down here and go back up. I'm going to end up with more there, but that's okay. So I'm going to start off with my first color, tan. Tan. I'm going to take off a piece of tan. The first flounder I ever caught on a fly was in Panama City on a clouser, of course. And it was a 3-color clouser. It was tan, root beer, and dark brown with copper flash. And I caught a big flounder. I thought it was a small red when I first caught it because it pulled so hard. But it ended up being a flounder pushing 27 inches. Which is really big for that part of the Gulf. Usually the big flounder on the Atlantic side. I didn't eat that flounder. Usually I eat them. Keep one and eat it. But that one I threw back. I don't know why. I don't think I had anything to carry them, or I didn't have a place to cook it, or I didn't have a cooler and ice and to properly preserve the fish, because I'm not going to ruin a fish. Unless I have, I'm not going to keep a fish unless I have everything I need to properly prepare it and store it. Nope. So once again, I'm pulling some of this. This is more bucktail than I need, because I'm going to do 3 parts. I'm going to tap it in the little stacker, get everything a little more even. This is pretty long too. That's okay, because that's a long hook. Now that I look at that hook is a 4/0. That's a hook I would usually use in Louisiana because the fish are so big. But I want to make a big mud minnow looking fly, or munch-a-mung. I guess they have them in Texas. They have them everywhere else. If I'm out in a little bit deeper water with grass, yeah, that's not going to be too bad. So I'm going to cut this down. Let me double check that length once more. Yeah. So I'm going to cut this down. I'm going to take my stinky glue. I'll put a little glue on that bucktail to help it seat. God, that stuff stinks. That is some stinky stuff. And I'm going to wrap that down. Wrap it a couple times, then pull it from the bottom up to snug it down. Don't want to flare it. So I'm not going to wrap it too tight. I probably should have wrapped that a little bit. I probably should have moved that first bunch of deer hair bucktail. I probably should have moved it a little bit further back because I'm going to end up with a pretty big head. That was my mistake. Not paying attention. Trying to tie too fast. But you see how this bend back covers up that hook point? Ow. So it helps it make weedless. And that's a pretty heavy hook and that's a pretty thick point. So I'm going to need a lot of bucktail to cover that up. So it's a good thing I'm going with 3 layers. But I should have put the first one here and the next one a little bit further and the next one a little bit further. Because I'm going to end up with a ginormous head on that thing if I'm not careful. So here is my ginger. I'm going to have to see if this is long enough. Yeah, I can't trim much off of that. Yeah, that's going to be long enough, but I can't trim much off of it. Put in the hair stacker, stack it. And stack that a little bit and get up the short butts. That's a big hook. Like I said, I usually only use hooks that big when I'm in Louisiana. Match that up. Just barely gonna knock a little bit off of that. North Carolina is supposed to have big redfish. I haven't fished North Carolina. I have caught redfish in Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi. First time fishing in Texas. So now I'm going to put that in place. I'm going to look at that real close. And yeah, I can see that I made a mistake putting that tan hair too far forward. So I'm going to wrap that a couple more times and I'm going to pull up from the bottom. Then wrap it in. There's a big old hunk of hair. Yeah, that looks long enough. Alright, so now I wouldn't want to go any shorter. That's about as short as you go. Now I need some flash. So for flash, I am going to use some of this other kind of flash. Some of this mylar stuff. And copper. I like copper for redfish. So I'm going to put some of this soft stuff in here. There's a big honking hook. Have I said that already? That's a big honking hook. And I also am going to put some crystal flash in there. What color? I think I'm going to go with this color. Oh, you know what? If it's a mud minnow, they actually have a little blue in their sides too. So I'm going to put a little bit of this in here. You know what? I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to come over here and get some blue. I know that sounds weird, but they actually do. If you ever study a mud minnow, the males, they have orange, kind of an orange and blue flash in the side, or orange and blue coloration in the side. So I am going to put just a little bit of blue in here. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to do it because there's no rules in fly tying, and there's no crying in baseball. So we're going to wrap that up. There's another thing I can do too. Chico Fernandez, when he ties his bendbacks, he puts a hackle on each side. Kind of gives it some bulk, some depth. And he uses a hackle that has some grizzly. It's a grizzly pattern hackle. It's not a plain color. So it gives it a scale-like effect. Munchamongs or mud minnows really don't have really heavy scales that are apparent. Now this is kind of spreading when I try to do this, so I'm going to come and I'm going to wet that. I could use the water in my bowl. So I'm going to put that in there. If I don't catch anything with this bendback in Texas, I'm going to take it to Georgia with me after Thanksgiving because I've been catching a lot of fish on clousers that are brown over tan, like mud minnow color. I'm going to take this and try this because we have some bigger redfish. I'll be able to target some bigger redfish. All right, that doesn't look too bad. So I got a little blue in there, got a little orange, got a little copper, and I need dark brown for my top. So I need some pretty long. I want to get all the way back to here. I'm going to have to go through my bucktails. I think I have some bigger bucktails, longer bucktails. Some pretty long bucktails. I'm going to come down here at the bottom, even though it's a little bit hollow. I cut the very bottom off, so the real hollow stuff is not on this bucktail. So I'm going to... I don't need all this. I cut more than I needed because I always do. Cut it pretty good too. I got some short stuff in there. I don't want any of the short stuff. I just want the long stuff. I'm going to grab it out here at the end and pull down, get the short stuff out. Short stuff. Look at that a little bit. There's some shorter stuff in there I don't want. I don't want the long ones, the long fibers. Get rid of some of that. So let's line this up and see what we got. See what we have. What do you have? What do you have? That's from the varsity in downtown Atlanta. What do you have? What do you have? So let's lay that up there. Now that's got a good length to it. See how that back is running the full length there, and then we've got some flash sticking out that's going to wiggle. That don't look too bad. Is there any other short stuff I can get out? Yeah, there's a couple shorties. Shorty right there. So I had way more bucktail than I needed, which allowed me to hand stack and get some of it out that I didn't want to use. All right. So that's gonna be okay. A couple more shorties. I know you're like, would you please just tie the bucktail onto the fly? Cut that at an angle. Open up the stinky cement. I can't believe that those cement so hard. I just haven't been using it. I've been using the epoxy. The resin, the UV resin, UV epoxy, whatever you want to call it. I only used to use head cement and gloss coat. That was the only thing I used to use. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to come back here to the back. I really should have had, if I'd done this correctly, it'd been more like a high tie. A piece, a piece, a piece. Instead of piece, piece, piece. Alright, so that's on there. Ow, watch that hook point. Sharp. Gonna kind of do some loose wraps here. Come up here. I'm gonna snug wrap right here. And then I'm going to yeah, that's a big hump right there. It's a big hump because I didn't stack that deer here on there right. Before I get it really, I'm going to take a look at it. Okay, it's on there straight. So, if this was going to be a bass fly, I would have used tan olive, and then on the back, I'd have put a big hunk of peacock herl. And that really would look good. It almost looked like a baby bass. Or you could use purple and olive with peacock herl on the back, and it would look like a bluegill. Or orange and olive, and it would look like a red breast. Or yellow and olive, and it would look like a sunfish. So I'm putting a pretty big head on here. I could actually put eyes on this thing if I wanted to, even though they get chewed off pretty quick. Yep, so that's a bendback. It's on a really big bendback hook. That's, like I said, that would be a hook I'd use over in Louisiana. I don't know if I'm even going to need it for Texas. I see some bigger redfish, and see, I was only planning on taking a 7-weight and a 5-weight. This is like an 8-weight. This fly would be better thrown on an 8-weight. 7-weight would be could be challenging. So I don't know. It's easier y'all see me tie this on such a big hook. So that's a bendback minnow, a very old pattern. You can see that the hook point is hidden in the bucktail, but when a fish grabs it, the bucktail folds in very quickly. It's got flash in it. You can throw it. As long as you don't jerk it real hard, you can get out of some pretty bad stick-ups. If you just kind of jiggle it, wiggle it, it'll drop right out of stick-ups. But that's a bendback. Very old pattern. And these are some of my favorite color combinations. Tan and brown, tan, ginger and brown. I've caught a lot of fish with that. So there we have it. I'm going to put some UV stuff on it. And we'll be good. Let me get my UV out. I'm going to goop it on there. That is a big honking hook. I don't know if I'm even going to take it. I don't even know if I'm going to take this bendback. I might save it and take it to Georgia. If it would work in Louisiana with these colors, or purple and black. would be really good colors for Louisiana. Or white chartreuse is a good color anywhere, but purple and black would be good colors. This color too, tan under brown, tan ginger under brown, ginger under brown are good colors too. That thing's just too big. I'm going to take that to Georgia. I'm going to have to tie a smaller one. I have to find one of my smaller Bendback hooks. All right, that should be baked. Yep, there we go. Bendback.